Okay, Gananoque, hello. Our lesson for today, our question for today is, what is an equation? An equation is essentially a mathematical way of saying that, that something is equal to something else, that an expression is equal to itself. So have a look. If I say 3 plus 3 equals 6, everyone's like, yes, okay, I got that, Brown. I already knew that. 3 plus 3 equals 6. Thank you very much. But that's an equation. It's also saying 3 plus 3 is the same as 6. And that's going to become important with what we did in integers last week and what we're doing with equations and eventually linear equations in the next coming weeks. So have a look at this. Last week we did, I hope everybody can see the board. I got some talk about last week about how the board was kind of far away. So I got a fatter marker and I'm writing in blue, which I hope punches up a bit more. Hopefully everybody can hear me as well. I'm kind of whispering because we are trying to stay away from one of the most destructive human beings in the history of the world, my daughter Rowan, who will likely come bombing through here if she discovers that we're doing something fun or anything for that matter and interrupt, but that's okay. So it goes. So last week in integers, we were looking at things like, I'm actually doing the splits now to get like into the shot. Last week doing integers, we were looking at things like moins 14 plus, let's just say 6 equals minus 14 plus 6. So I've got something cold, right? Minus 14, I'm adding heat to it. I'm adding 6 heat units to it. So the temperature is gonna go up. I'm gonna go from minus 14, I'm gonna go up closer to 0. That's a tricky thing to understand about integers, right? Because you wanna say, oh, I'm gonna add 6, I'm gonna go to minus 20, but that would make it colder. And I'm adding positive 6, not minus 6. So the temperature is gonna go up closer to, what's it gonna be? Minus 8, right? Okay. What that is saying is that minus 14 plus 6 is the same as minus 8. That's what an equation is. Now I'm going to give you guys something different to chew on because feedback I got was mostly pretty good. You guys are pretty comfortable with that idea of integers. And we're going to come back to it. Don't worry. We're not done integers. Integers are forever in high school too. Let's just do something a little different. Minus 14 plus, that was times. I just wrote a times, but I meant to write a plus. You guys are totally used to that. Also, I should try to draw I'll try to draw something in this lesson because you guys know I'm such a good drawer. Minus 14 plus x equals minus 3. Okay, x, what does that mean? Well, x is a variable, okay? And a variable is a placeholder for a number we don't know. Now, some of you might be looking at it and be like, Brown, I totally know what that number is, and that's cool. What I want to try to show you guys is how you can use an equation to solve for x. This here isn't asking a question yet. It's just stating something that is true. Minus 14 plus something else, call it x, is equal to minus 3. Right? I haven't asked a question yet. I'm just giving you a piece of information, namely that these two things are the same. You can use that piece of information to solve for x, which is what we're going to do right now. So, and this is why our integers are important. Again, back down into the splits. Okay, so if you want to solve for x, I'm saying, okay, tell me, whoever, I'm going to give a shout out to Mr. Bean, Rowan Leader. Tell me what the value of x is. What I want you guys to do is isolate x. You want to find what x is equal to. So we're going to get x all by itself in this equation. This right now is a balanced equation. If I were to put this on a scale, because they're the same, they weigh the same on each side. That is a terrible balance. I told you there'd be a drawing. There it is. That's a balance, you know, like the scale balances you had in grade 1, 2, 3, whatever it was. That's what we got there. We're saying that these two sides are the same. Now what I'm going to do is get x by itself. So I want to get rid of this minus 14 business. How do I get 0 from minus 14? How do I get to 0? I'm going to add 14. So I'm going to go minus 14. Grade 8, this will be really familiar. Some of the 7s as well. So minus 14 plus 14 plus x equals minus 3, we said, right? Okay, now look what I've done though. If I'm using my balance, I've added 14 to this side, which means the balance is going to be heavy on this side, right? If I have something, if minus 14 plus x weighs the same as minus 3, and I add 14 to one side, it's going to imbalance the equation, right? It's going to shoot down to this side. So I have to add 14 to this side. Okay, I added 14 here. I'm going to add 14 here. Apologize for the handwriting, which is awful. So minus 14 plus 14 equals what? 0, right? We talked about that before. So 0 plus x, we can just call that x because 0 plus x is x, right? That's the kind of thing that Clint would say. And Clint, you are absolutely right. We'll just call it x. So x, I've got that on this side now, is equal to minus 3 plus 14. Now here's the question. What's minus 3 plus 14? So I'm adding heat to something that is already, to something that is negative. So it's going to be, it's going to go up. So it's going to go from minus 3. It's going to go all the way at minus 3, add 14 to it. I'm going to go past 0 and all the way up to 11. Okay, so it's going to be positive 11 or 11. You can just write 11. You don't have to write positive 11. You can put brackets around if you want it. If it helps it keep it straight in your head, that's totally cool too. I would definitely recommend putting brackets around any negative integers just to keep it straight in your head. So what we're saying now, this is balanced again. X is the same, there's my balance, as positive 11. That's kind of messy. Can you guys see that? X is the same as positive 11. So let's put it back into our formula and see if we're right. Because if I put 11 up here, minus 14 plus 11 equals negative 3. That is true, right? So I've tested the formula now. Now in your head at the very start, you might have said, Brown, I can tell you that I don't need to go through all that stuff, all those steps. I can just tell you that I know minus 14 plus 11 equals negative 3. And that's great. But soon we're going to be having longer equations. You're going to be having to multiply and subtract in the same equation. You're going to have a leading coefficient. You're going to have multiple variables by grade 10, I think it is. So it's really important to get used to using these steps when we're when we're solving for equations. Let's do another one right here. I'm going to erase all this. How's everybody doing, by the way? I was really bummed that we didn't go back to school in June. I was really hoping, I was writing junior today. I was really hoping that we were going to get to go back to June. A wonderful month to be at school, to be outside, but it didn't happen. Hopefully September. LeGrand bummer. Okay, let's do another one. Let's start with a positive integer. Let's go 22 plus negative 6 equals, okay, this is a review question. Not sure how I wrote that. Anybody want to do it for me right now? 22, I'm going to add cold, so the number is going to drop, right? So I'm going to end up with plus 16, right? Again, you don't need to write plus 16. You don't need to put brackets. You can just say 16 because that is the number. But I wrote it like that, just sort of, that's just how I wrote it. Okay, so now an equation, okay? That's an equation up there too. This is balanced, right? 22 plus minus 6 is the same as plus 16. Let's mess with it a little bit. 22 plus x equals 10. Okay, so now I've got an equation. 22 plus something equals 10. All right, I don't know what that, now in your head, again, you get maybe saying, Brown, I know what that is. Fine, but I'm going to show you the steps about how to figure it out, how to isolate the variable. That's the first thing you want to do whenever we're working with equations, is we want to isolate the variable, which in this case is x. It could also be y, it could be I, it could be t, it could be a loaf of bread. Perhaps not the latter, but it can be anything as a placeholder that shows us that it represents another number. That's what the x does. So again, this is now balanced. I'm going to try to do a better job of a balance. Okay. So this is a balanced equation. I'm going to imbalance a little bit to solve for x. Okay, so I've got this 22 over here, and I want to have just x alone. So how am I going to get rid of 22? I'm going to subtract 22. So from this side, I'm going to take 22. Now, what I've just done, if I take away 22, that's going to make this side really heavy. So I've got to subtract 22 from the other side as well. Minus 22. Okay, so what's 22 minus 22? I'm going to be left with x on this side is equal to 10 minus 22. Here's where that integers thing comes in, right, from last week. So x is the same, now this is balanced, as 10 minus 22. Remember, I took away 22 from this side of the balanced equation. These two are the same, so in order to keep them the same, if I take 22 off this side, I got to take 22 off that side. So now I'm left with x equals 10 minus 22. Or x equals, what's 10 minus 22? Negative 12, right? Am I right? feel like I'm right. I'm gonna put brackets around that. So let's see if I'm correct. 22, let's go back to the top here. I'm gonna erase, you guys all see that? I'm gonna erase this X. I'm gonna test ourselves, see if we're right. 22 plus minus 12 is equal to 10. Okay, the mountain was asking me about this. I'm gonna put you on the spot right now in the easiest way possible because you can't lose, because everybody's gonna hear you get the right answer. The mountain, if I have 22 and I add something that is cold to it, 12 colds, is the temperature gonna go up or is it gonna go down? Bam! Yes, the mountain, it's gonna go down. I'm adding 12 colds, the temperature of 22 is gonna go down to 10. Okay, I'm subtracting 12 from 22. Good for you, the mountain, right on. So that is the concept we're working on today. I'm gonna post a little bit of, I'm gonna post some questions that just have to do with manipulating an equation to solve for a pretty simple variable. If you're not sure about certain parts, email me for sure. It might be worth it to, we can chat about it tomorrow too in the chat group, which starts at 1 o'clock on Thursday. We'll talk about of mice and men, but if we want to review some math too, that we can totally do that as well. Or message me directly and we'll talk about it directly, which I did with a number of you over this week, so that's cool. So I'll post some of you guys were saying, hey Brown, I can't actually write onto the drawing that you post. That's okay, you don't need to write on it. Just, those questions are there, you can answer them, and if you want to submit them back to me, you can. I've also included the answer sheet so you can check your work. Remember, it's not about just looking at the answers and saying, and just copying them in. It's about understanding the process, because we're gonna build this block by block by block. We start with, introducing integers, and now we're talking about introducing a variable, and we have to do that because we're gonna have negative and positive numbers with that variable. So we'll post this to YouTube, and then I'll post in the OneNote some questions relating to manipulating an equation once, just to find out the value of X or Y or whatever that placeholder is. Probably not a loaf of bread. Okay, talk to you soon, Gananock. We'll talk to you guys at 1 o'clock tomorrow. That's Thursday, Reza, Thursday at 1 o'clock. Okay, talk to you guys then.